Hello guys, in this video I'm going to show you how to make EXO game using Python. In the last video I showed you how to make an EXO game using Python. That game is played between two players, that is player X and player O, and both are humans. In this video I'm going to show you the same EXO game, but this game is played between the players one X and O, and one player is a human and the next player is going to be the CPU. So let's get started. First, what we have to do is create a main function. Under this function, our main loop will be there, that is the while loop, and this loop will be executing continuously until the player exits out of the game. So for that, def main game. Under here, what we need to do is first create the play variable equals to true. Once this variable becomes false, the player exits out of the game. And next, what we have to do is create a board. It is a list. It is a list of 10 elements and not 9 elements because I'm using the first element as an empty string, which will be empty string throughout the game, and no either X or O will not be entered in this place because the user will be entering 1, 2, 3 and not 0, 1, 2, 3, and the indexing starts from 0, 1, 2, 3 and not from 1. So to make the task easier, I'm using the first place to be empty. So if the user enters first number, the mark that is either X or O will be entered in the second place. That is according to the index number 1 in list. And next, what we have to do is create the main loop while true. What is going to be go here is so first we have to get the input from the user whether the user wants to play X as X or O. For that we have to create a function called as def user choice. In here, while true, you have to get the input from the user. Choose your mark, that is either X or O. If the if input is in the list of capital X and small x, that means the user have chose the mark to be X. In that case, we have to print humans playing first. You play first, yeah. And then what we have to do is return the value back to the main function and return X comma O. And if the input is in function there, if the input in capital O or small o, then the user have chose the mark to be O. So in that case we have to print you chose to be O and CPU plays first. And then we have to return O comma X. Else we have to print, it's a message for human, so human enter correct input. So this is how we get the input from the user, and how to call this function is human comma CPU equals to user choice. So when returning, if the human chose the mark to be X, we're returning X first, so that goes and stores under the X variable, and O, which is stored under the CPU variable. And then in the XO game, always player X will be playing first. So first we have to check if human equals to X. If human is X, then human will be playing first. For that we have to get the input from the user, and for getting the input from the user X, we have to create a function. In the previous tutorial we defined two functions, that is X input and O input, that is for getting the input from the X user and for getting the input from the O user. In this case we are creating both the functions, that is combining both functions into one function. So in this def human input. So what is human input, and we have to set a mark variable. So while true, we have to get the input from the user. Input equals to input, and string formatting. If you don't know what is string formatting, suppose if I assume a equals to 10 and I can directly print this like string of a is the value of, that is 10 is the value of a. Other way to do this is print value of a dot format a. Both the functions do the same thing, but here we directly pass the variable inside the brackets, and here we format it outside. So what we have to do now is human is entering, so human and his mark, which will be mark, enter your choice. Yeah. Now we have to check if int dot is digit and int of int is greater than 0 and int of int is lesser than 10. What I'm doing here is first getting the input as a string format, and then if the checking if the string is a digit, and then checking if the input int of the integer of that string is greater than 0 and less than 10, because in our board we have only numbers from 1 to 9. If this is correct, next I'm checking if board of input equals to empty string. That means I'm checking if the place is free for the user to input. If it is true, then we are returning the value back to the main game. Return in this case inp. Yeah. In this else case, if the place is not free, then the place is either occupied by the human or the CPU, and the user have to choose some other place to place his mark. So we have to print human is place already taken. In the first else case, if the user didn't enter the digit, if he enters some special characters or some alphabets, in that case we have to print human enter correct input. Yeah, so this is the function which gets the input from the user. So first, if the human is playing as a x, we are getting the input as x equals to human input, and then we are changing the place in the board to the mark x, that is board of x equals to human. In this case, human is x. And next what we are going to do is displaying the board. So initially I have created a function called as display board here. What this does is print the elements of the board list in the form of boxes, like in the form of this format. So if the first element of the board is x, then here it will be displayed as x, and instead of 1, x will be displayed, and then for 6, if it is 0 o, then the o will be displayed like that, and displaying the board. So we have to call the display board function next. So display board, yeah. And next what we have to do is to check for the winning place. If the move which is done by the human leads to a winning case or a match draw case. So the function name will be def win check. Yeah, here what we have to do is first create a nested list which is called as winning places. Which contains the winning places like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 1, 4, 7, 2, 5, 8, 3, 6, 9, and the diagonals. These are the winning places a human can get in order to win an EXO game. So that we are hard coding it as a nested list. So I just copied it from the previous game. And next what we have to do is iterate through each of the element of the nested list. So for win place in winning places, and if board of win place of 0 equals to board of win place of 1 equals to board of win place 2 equal to the human mark. So here we have to pass two parameters called as human and CPU. If it is equals, then we have to print human wins the match. And then we have to ask the user if he wants to play the next game. So for that we have to create a function which is called as new game, and we'll finish this code first. So I'll put a pass statement over here, and elif the same thing. Now this, if it is equal to CPU, in this case we have to print CPU wins the match. If neither of the cases occurs, then we have to check if it is a match to a case. So if empty space not in board, then what we have to print is print match draw. And next we have to ask for the new game. So for that we have to create a function which is called as def new game, while true ask the input from the user, input equals to input, do you want to play the next game. So you're asking the input from the human, so human, do you want to play the next game. The answer should be either Y or N. So if INP in the list of capital Y or small y, in that case yes, the user wants to play the next game. So what we have to do is we have to create another variable which is called as again, and set that as true, and we have to break out of the loop. Else INP in a list of capital N or small n, in that case the user doesn't want to play the next game and quit out of the game. So for that what we have to do is again variable equals to false, and we have to break out of the loop. Else we have to print human enter correct input. And next what we have to do is check if the again variable is true. So if again, in this case what we have to do is print you're playing a new game, so new game, and what we have to do is call the main function again, that is the main game. Else what we have to do is return the value, so return false. Yeah. So what we have to do is we have to call the function here. So inp equals to new game. If new game, if it is a new game, the player wants to play the next game. In that case what we have to do is we have to if not new game, we have to return false. The same thing is here, if not, or if not inp. So if not inp, so we have to call the function inp equals to new game, and if not inp we have to return false. Yeah. And if it is a match to a case, then also we have to ask inp equals to new game. If inp, if not inp, in that case we have to return false. In the else case we have to return true. Yeah. So now we have to check if it is true or false. So that is, we have to decide whether the play variable equals to winning win check. win check of human comma CPU. So human and CPU. In the X input, that is a human input, we have to enter the variable. Yeah, so I missed that. We have to enter human. So if play, that is if the case is true. In that case, the CPU now can make its move. We have to get the input from the O equals to CPU input. For that we have to create a function. So the def CPU input which takes three parameters. We need CPU, human and board. Yeah. And here what we have to do is for I in range 1, 10, that is going to be, that is we are going to access the elements of the list, that is board. In here, if board of I equals to an empty string, and we have to create a function which checks if we enter the CPU's mark on that place and it results in a winning move. So for that we have to create a function which is called as def win move, and it takes a current index and board and CPU's mark. What this function is going to do is it will create a temporary list, and it will insert that CPU's mark at that index I, and then it will check if that inserted mark leads to a winning place. If it leads to winning place, it will return that index back to the CPU, and that CPU input will return the value back to the main game. So that is how this executes. So inside this when move, you have to create a temporary board equals to list of board. We have to create a temporary board because we cannot do any changes to the main board which will be displaying. So to prevent any mess in the game, we are creating a temporary board, and we have to create temporary board equals to list of boards, because if we don't create, if we directly like t equals to 1, 2, 1, 3, 4, and next directly if we give f equals to t, the problem will occur here is if we check for the id of t and id of f, both will be same. So now the original file is t and the duplicate file is f, and if we change f of 0 equals to suppose 45, we can see that their changes will be also reflected in the original list. So to prevent this happening, we are creating a temporary list which is pointing to a entirely new different ID. So once we have created the temporary board, and next temp board equals to temp board of I equals to mark, and next what we have to do is if winning, we have to create a function which checks if this move is a winning place. So for that we have to create a function winning which will take a parameter of mark, that is the CPU, here CPU, and this will be passed as CPU. The next parameter will take it as a temp board. And now we have to check if this is a winning place. For that, the function is winning of mark and board. Inside here we are the same like how we did for the win check. We have to create a for loop using the nested list of winning places. For win place in winning places, and what we have to do here is if board, same thing what we did here, and now in this case we have to check if it is equals to mark. In that case, yes, it leads to the winning move. The move which is made by the CPU leads to a winning move, so we have to return true. In the else case, we don't have to return anything. Here we have to type return false. So if it is a winning move, in that case what we have to do is from here we have to return true. In the else case we have to return false. Yeah. So now coming to the CPU input, we have to check if board of that index I is an empty place, and when move of CPU, so index I and board and CPU. So if you guys find this as a bit confusing, I'll explain it again. So now what we did here is getting the input from the CPU. For that we have called the function called a CPU input, and inside the CPU input we have a function which takes three parameters, that is CPU, human and board. So what we're doing is going through loop. So for I in range 1 comma 10, that is it will take up to 1 to 9, which is there in the board, and 1 till 9. So for I in range 1 comma 10, if and we are checking board of that index is free place, and we are calling a function which is called as a win move. Suppose if the CPU enters the mark in that place, if it leads to a winning position. So for that we wrote a function which is called as win move, which takes also three parameters, which is the index and the board and the CPU. That is the mark of the CPU. In this case it is O, and it comes to this function. In this function what we did is creating a temporary board, sorry, since we don't want to make any changes to the original board and it might lead to a mess, and we are changing the element at index I to be CPU, that is O. And next what we're doing is checking if that move which is made by the CPU leads to a winning case. So for that we wrote a function which is called as a winning, which takes two parameters, that is CPU's mark, that is O, and the temporary board. In here we pass the parameters as mark and board, and we are iterating through each of the winning place element in the nested list. So for win place and winning places, if board of 0, board of 1 and board of 2 in the first iteration is equal to the mark, in that case it is true, and we are returning true back to the win move function where it is called. So if it is true, that is the move which is made by the CPU in the temporary board is true. So in that case we are returning back the true back to the CPU input from where it is called as win move. So if both the cases are true, board of I is an empty place and win move also is a true, in that case CPU is allowed to make the move in that index. So what we have to do here is return I. Right. In the next loop what we have to do is, now we have checked if the move which is made by the CPU leads to a winning place. If in case all the moves which is made by the CPU doesn't lead to a winning case for CPU, some index in which the human might enter, and it will lead to a winning case. So we have to check for that also. So for I in range 1 comma 10, same thing, but here we have to check for the human. If this is true, we have to we don't want the player to enter, human player to enter in that index, and the CPU will enter in that place. So return I. If both of the cases are false, in that case we have to create an other for loop inside which we will hard code the values according to which it will take the input. So for I in range, so for I in list of values of 5 comma 1 comma 7, then 2 comma 4 comma, I guess, yeah, just a minute, so it's 3 comma 2 comma 9 comma 8 comma 6 comma 4. If that is the case, then what we have to do, we have to check if board of I is an empty place. If it is an empty place, we have to return I. Yeah, so that is how the CPU will choose its mark, its place in the board. And yeah, so now we have called the function. We have to pass the parameter, that is CPU comma human and board. And next what we have to do is same thing, we have to change board of O equals to CPU, and next we have to display the board, and next we have to check if the play variable is true. Play equals to, we are checking for win case, win check of human comma CPU. So in the else case of the first if, so else, this else case executes when human is O. In this case CPU enters first, so it is the same code, except here X will be CPU input of CPU comma human comma board. Then we have to check board of X equals to CPU, display the board, and then check the play, and if it is play confirm, we have to ask the input from the human. So human input, and human is only human, and then we have to check, we have to set board of 0 O equals to, and then we have to set board of O equals to human, and then display the board and check for the win case. So that's it, that's all we have to create in order for this game to work. Next we'll call the main function. So if name equals to main, in that case we can call main game. Yeah, if we execute, there's an error in the line 122. What is there? Okay, we missed this bracket. So if we run now, it is going, it is first asking the human to make the move. So if it is X, we are choosing X, it prints you chose X and you play first. So it's asking for our choice. We'll press enter, and board is not defined. What happened here? 55, line number 55. If board, okay, we have to pass another variable, other parameter called as board, or can do one more thing. Yeah, in here we can global board. Yeah, now it should work fine, I guess. X, the first choice is 1. Oh my god, seriously. What is the same mistake in line 55? What happened there is okay, so we missed. We have to change inp equals to int of inp, because initially it is there as a string, and then we have to change it as integer, that is explicit typecasting, so that it can be used as an index. Yeah, so first we have entered 1, and then CPU has entered 5. Okay, now we can enter 9, so it entered the value 7, and if we enter 3, it enters okay, so it blocked one move and it left the other move, so we enter 6, and it prints CPU. Oh, CPU already wins the game. Okay, so we didn't call the function properly. Oh my gosh, there are a lot of errors in the game, so we run the code again and check if it is correct. First X, then 1 plus 9 plus 3 plus 6. Hopefully it should work now. Yeah, so if you press Y, it asks for the human choice again, so 1. So what seems to be the problem here is we've called this again inside the for loop. We have to call it outside. So now it should work. If I run next 1 9 3 6, and if we press yes, it's a new game, and it asks us to choose the mark, and then in case if I choose O, it enters first, and then I enter 3, I enter 8, enter 4, and it's a match draw case. You can quit out of the So what happened here? There are a couple of errors in the game. Okay, so we didn't set this as while play, so that's the error, guys. And now if we execute the game, press X 1 9 3 6, and if you want to exit out of the game, press N. Why did 1 print over there? Okay, so if you want, we can print have a great day. Let us 6 1 9 3 6 7. So that's it with the video, guys. If you like this content, do like the video and share the video with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more videos, and click the bell icon to get more updates. Thank you for watching, guys. Do subscribe to the channel and support the channel. Thank you.